Welcome to DPX AI. I am Larry Vogel, and I will be your host tonight. Let's get started. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started and talk about, let's see. Well, so we did have, we called it kind of a homework assignment, but I got a few people that had done, who've submitted some pieces. We kind of started this idea for this prompt challenge. This is only the second one that we've done. The first one was sort of what was the Holy Grail was the first one, and that was just based on the idea that I had made an image for a presentation that I was doing, and I used AI to do the Holy Grail. So we ended up with some cool stuff. It's always interesting to see what people are doing. The idea behind the prompt challenge, I think, is just to get people motivated to do something. And I think, like any sort of organization, I know, like photo clubs and places like that, when they have these competitions, it definitely puts a deadline into your life, and you'll at least get something done. You kind of hope. I'm the same way. I was like, I'll just leave it sit, and then, oh yeah, tonight we have a meeting, I better make something for the show. So anyhow, that was the idea behind doing the prompt challenge, and I haven't thought much about what we're going to do for this next month. We may skip it and see if everybody goes, oh, let's do the prompt challenge. But I say almost every month that we do this, I go, we're still kind of feeling our way through this, but I think we're past the feeling part of the figuring out what we're going to do. But I'm going to say that it's very loosely structured, at least on anybody who wants to submit images that you're working on, AI related. It can be either completely AI, or you could be doing photography with, AI corrections, and anything I think is pretty much wide open. And again, I think the idea of the exhibit that Joe Nalden is doing is kind of my idea or thought behind doing this group in the beginning. Was I'm real anxious to find people who are doing some real creative things with AI, and to see, what can we do. I use the same example all the time. What we can do beyond putting in a prompt about polar bears roller skating, eating ice cream cones. So, and you'll know what I mean if you've gotten on to Mid-Journey or any of those sites and you look through what people are doing. It looks like a whole bunch of stuff like that. So anyhow, I think that we're still kind of growing with the new technology, I think, figuring out its possibilities, and I just love the idea when creative people kind of get more involved in this, and then hopefully this is an outlet for creative people to come in and share their work. So that's kind of the idea behind it. So our prompt challenge was to use this image of Jerry Uelsmann. So I'll zoom on that a little bit. So for those of you that do or don't know, so Jerry Uelsmann was a photographer who did all of his compositing in the darkroom, which I think is the miraculous part of his photography when you look at it. Anybody who, I think, spent any time doing darkroom work always thought that, gee, I'd like to do some compositing like Jerry Uelsmann does. And the first thing you figure out, it ain't that easy in the darkroom. But then along came Photoshop, and then everybody could do it, right? So, but I think it's photo compositing is a really great process. I think it's very creative, and I think the idea of working, creating, you can call them fantasy images, but creating images that basically don't happen in the camera or through your viewfinder requires that sort of post-processing ability to create it. So the idea was to take Jerry Uelsmann's image and create a prompt from the image. Something by describing that, I gave sort of an example here. Old gnarly tree stump with long roots above ground, an old 2-story abandoned house merged on top of the tree stump, a small village located in the hillside, and I added the "and a stormy sky" because I thought his sky was kind of boring. I thought it'd be more interesting to have a better sky. Above the hills, black and white photograph in the style of Jerry Uelsmann. So no rules to any of this, other than the idea was to use the Jerry Uelsmann image as inspiration to create a prompt, and so we will see what happens. Also, I will mention, that Paul Lawrence is here tonight too, and Paul Lawrence sent in some images also not related to our prompt challenge, and we will look at those in a minute as soon as we get through our prompt challenge. So, all right, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I'll pull them up in the order that I received the prompt challenges in, and I guess also there's Kaz had one. What did you call it when you sent it to me? Here it is. It's actually in his title. Tree crap. 1800. I don't know what the 1800 means, but this is what he called his tree crap. Was that actually your prompt?
No, I went through a bunch of the Jerry Uelsmann stuff and got these tree roots things, and then I did a blend with a Led Zeppelin album cover. Can you guess which one?
Houses of the Holy.
Houses of the Holy. You got it. Houses of the Holy.
Yeah, the little Stonehenge thing back here, or whatever that is. There's Osea. Yeah. Welcome, Osea. All right. So your the front part, the roots and everything was the AI generated part, and the back end was part of the compositing together with, or did you use that?
I don't remember what image I had before I did the blend. I mean, it's been, over a month because you canceled the last meeting, and
that's right.
I've slept since then. I can't even remember exactly what I did. I just remember that I played around with it and got, the houses and the tree roots, and I just, kept mucking around, and, it got to where I think the house disappeared, which I liked, and so I blended it with the Houses of the Holy and came up with a few images, and I thought this one was the best one that out of the bunch.
Pretty cool.
All right, and what are you using for? Are you using Midjourney or Dolly or one of the Midjourney? Okay. Yeah, I think it's always interesting to find out what people are using to do their blends with. And again, with a lot of people who are photographers who have Photoshop, then we have access to Firefly, and Firefly is gradually improving. I think they're on version 3 right now. So that's certainly a viable tool to use. All right, any comments or questions for Kaz about his tree crap?
I love the low angle. I love that you're practically in the roots of the base and going. Yeah, it's really nice perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the change of color too.
Yeah, the idea of the black and white.
The black and white to the color.
And what'd you do for the sky, Kaz? How was that?
I
don't remember.
No, I didn't like the sky. It created some, this kind of radial thing, and so I went in with I use Affinity Photo,
all right,
instead of Photo, but I went in and masked it all out, and then did a Gaussian blur to soften it, because it was just too much. It didn't look like a sky, and it didn't look like a radiating. That was the only part. And then there was the Houses of the Holy figures instead of the little naked girls.
Oh yeah, right.
They put in a bunch of just odd shaped, kind of anthropomorphic shapes, and I just didn't like them, so I took them out. Yeah. I left a couple of them in there. And,
interesting texture pattern too on the all the sort of dots on everything.
It's very interesting.
I don't know that I've seen that on any of the images.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with that.
All right. Any other comments for Kaz? We'll move on to the next one. So I think what I'm going to do also is I'll come back to your other image isn't related to the tree thing, is it?
Yeah, if you want to come back later, that's cool.
Because I thought I'd do just the prompt things first.
Yep.
So, and this is always, I think, interesting too. So Don Fike gave us a before and after of what he has, and so I was curious to, when I saw these, curious to find out. Because Don does some interesting techniques where he does a lot of things that look like photo composites, and it turns out that they were not really photo composited at all in Photoshop. They were just overlaid from magazines or photos or something like that, and then rephotographed. So I was curious to find out your technique on this one.
Well, yeah, well, like you said, the 11th hour yesterday, I went, oh my God, tomorrow's meeting. It's like, so, I'm a kind of a beginner at the AI end of it. So I thought, you know what, I like Larry Vogel's approach of collaboration. So, I found an image that I've been working with lately that I like, which is the one on the left. And basically, this is real basic. There's nothing secret here. Selection on the image and just telling it to do gnarly, large and small tree roots. And the one thing I did learn is that, don't give up.
Yeah.
And just keep trying, because I kept kind of changing it and stuff, and none of the results even came close. This is in Photoshop, by the way. And I just kept pushing that envelope, and then all of a sudden it was like, one of the three just went. The way that it wrapped itself around the stem and all this stuff, there still needs to be some cleanup work and stuff. But I was just blown away, and also the shadow.
Yeah.
To me, it was like a moment of magic, and it was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So,
that
was my whole trip.
Wow.
But I just, and then also the fact that I happen to have some other leaves and stuff, on the patio, worked perfectly with the thing that dropped in there. So, I was really pleased with just, try it again, change it, try it again, and then all of a sudden,
bam!
It was like magic. So I was very excited. Anyway,
very cool.
But now I'm a fan.
Well, I had one guy. I had written something somewhere. It might have been online, Facebook, or somewhere, commenting on somebody's page, and I'd used the term artificial intelligence, and some guy commented back, and he goes, "Oh, I see you've bought into the hype. There's no intelligence here at all. It's an algorithm. It's not intelligent." I go, I beg to differ. When I see things like this happen, I go, something intelligent is happening, where it can morph these things into your own images.
I'm a big critic. I didn't think that it would do something magical like that. The selection had something to do with it as far as the way I wrapped it around the stem and stuff. Yeah. But none of the other ones even came close. It was just like all garbage.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, so I was like, all right.
Yeah, and there's a weird. To me, it's like also. The first time you went into Photoshop, your results were probably not so great either, until you really kind of beat up the program and learned enough about it, and you get better and better at it, and things start looking better. Like your first composites in Photoshop probably are not that great compared to where you are now. And I think the same thing about using artificial AI inside of Photoshop, and the idea of you making selections and writing prompts, and you're kind of learning that language, and yeah, sometimes. Well, in fact, I remember somebody made a comment one time. They said, if you're jumping into using AI and writing prompts, you have to begin with giving up control over the whole thing, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens that is not in your control. But I've also, and I think we've had this conversation before because Greg has brought it up too, but many times. I'm going in one direction, and it's kind of responding to the prompts. Then all of a sudden, something just out of the blue happens, and you go, "Oh, I didn't even think of that idea. Let's run with that." And so you start changing the prompts and running with that, and that's kind of, again, that collaborative thing that you mentioned too. is that it definitely, if you start working at it that way, it does definitely start to feel more like a collaboration. Like, hey, I'm communicating with the machine is responding. I'm looking at that and being inspired by that, and rewriting a prompt and changing things. And then the idea too of being able to start, even using traditional compositing methods on top of all that starts to really open up the game even further. So. Very cool. Any comments for Don?
Like you're searching for.
Go ahead.
It's almost like you're searching for a moment of harmony. It's almost like you're searching for that moment. It's weird. I can't explain it any other way, but that seems to be kind of what it feels like.
All right.
I really like Don. I like the there's something in the legs and the pattern in the metal. The umbrella holder there that works really nicely with the roots. It's nicely composed. It integrated really well. I'm blown away by how well the roots came out.
Yeah.
Because I kept trying to generate roots in my piece, and I couldn't get anything close to what I was asking for.
Yeah. Yeah. I even love how it morphed, kind of that steel gray color that it's painted, right? And so the color even morphs into the roots, and then it kind of then becomes more natural out this way too, which is pretty interesting. I also love the circle, the shadow, almost becomes more graphic than necessarily recognizable as a shadow. It almost feel like if this element wasn't on the edge of the circle, it would feel like you created that circle under the umbrella.
Right.
Very cool.
Well, thank you.
All right.
That was fun.
The last minute, last minute pays off. Well, when you said, when we were talking about this sort of last minute crunch to get something done, I go, this is starting to feel just like a job. You procrastinate. Somebody hires you to do something, and it's like, okay, I'll get to this tomorrow. Oh shoot, I got to get this done tomorrow. Tomorrow's the deadline. All right, thanks, Don.
Exactly.
All right, Mr. Greg Klemp, the man who never disappoints.
Wow.
Oh, wait a minute. So I got to start here. There we go.
Yeah, I did a bunch of the black and whites, trying, with stuff that looked like the Uelsmann original, and I wasn't really happy with it. So I ended up doing prompts that were more toward like a castle, like Victorian houses and castles and things. And these were two of the castle.
These are amazing.
Those are great.
Wow.
And these are all.
Yeah, I really like that. Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
That is so cool.
So I saw the one on the left. I could hear in my head, mountains come out of the sky and they stand.
Roger Dean.
Yeah, and Roger Dean.
This is beautiful.
So then you merge those two together?
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Wow.
Yeah. So I took the one on the right, and then I extended the canvas out to the left and got this distant. So this is in Photoshop, just using the generative expand, and that gave me the background. I did a few iterations on the background image there to try to get some depth to it, and then I pulled the other one, stripped it out of the other piece, and I did most of this like 2 days after the last meeting, and then spent several hours this morning trying to build the roots out from the base of that one that was floating there.
I want the story.
So I still have a lot of work to do on that.
I'm interested in the story.
Yeah.
That this represents, there's got to be a story in there.
Greg, how did you do the prompt for the houses?
Yeah.
It was something along the lines of a castle. Let me see if I can find at least the basics of the prompt. Was a large medieval castle growing out of the top of ficus or a fig tree, something along those lines.
It's just beautiful.
And there were a bunch of really terrible things, so it took a few iterations to get there.
Yeah.
As always.
Very cool.
Something ominous.
I also think what I love too, and this was kind of like originally when we started about doing the prompt thing, is like I didn't want to give like here's how you have to do this, but also tried to encourage people to go, look, maybe you generate something in Mid-Journey, you take it into Photoshop and you combine things together, you add things, take away, using multiple sources to create the final image. And I think this is a great example of using those techniques. Because I really think I thought about that when I first started using Mid-Journey, and then started using it as a way of doing some compositing. I thought, we who use Photoshop are so fortunate to have that sort of leg up on everybody else who's just sitting there writing prompts and getting something out of Mid-Journey and going, okay, that's what I have to take. I get that. But then now to be able to like create elements that become part of another finished process inside Photoshop and combining some of your own stuff together with it and multiple AI iterations to put things together, the possibilities then just become gigantic and incredible.
Yeah, I still struggle with like how do I put myself into it more, because so much of it is really the Mid-Journey piece of it, and I have a discomfort with calling it my own. Or putting my name on it still.
Collaboration, maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, and I do Greg clamped AI on things that are mostly AI, so that it's acknowledged that that's part of the process.
Yeah.
Well, we get into this thing again where we're I keep beating this dead horse, where we're functioning as designers, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think I don't even care if you put AI on it. You designed it. You use the tools that were at your disposal and created something, and what you created is worthwhile and it's great.
Yeah, it would be like, would we expect you to give Photoshop credit, for taking the image from your camera and making it better?
Yeah, but everything that I do in Photoshop is stuff that I've learned how to do with. I mean, Photoshop is a tool, purely a tool, not a generator of my story.
Right.
And this is so much that's not mine, even though it feels like the stuff I would be I would be proud to technically do.
Yeah.
I'm not actually that capable.
Yeah.
Of doing something like this from scratch, and I'd like to be there, and I'd like to say that's mine and I'm that good, but I'm, it's still, I appreciate it for the story that it is and the image that it is, and I have no problem of putting it on social media, but it's also still like how do I take this idea and get back into, like, as I was working the roots today, it really pushed me to get back into my painting technique, and it's a mixture of smudging and cloning and just painting stuff from scratch, and then using textures creatively to build it out so it feels more like the texture that's in the work, and that's all good exercise for building my technique.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful.
I don't see this as any different than using Photoshop as a tool. I think, Photoshop, from a painter's perspective, they would argue with you the same argument you're giving about AI. They would argue with you about Photoshop.
Yes, everybody has different experiences, and
I think where this whole thing is going is, in the end, the AI is a tool, and the artist is going to be responsible for creating and building the idea, and then translating that idea into a prompt that creates something very unique, even though it is, gathering stuff from all over the universe, but it is you, the artist, that is actually creating that structure, that object through your idea, and that the AI is literally just a paintbrush, and that it creates, it manifests what you're thinking, and that's what is art? I don't know. I mean, that kind of sounds like what we're doing all the time anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously throughout history we've had many discussions about, what constitutes art, creativity, create any of that. You can call it whatever you want, but I think it feels like we've already resolved a lot of those questions already, by artists who have sort of taken it to that extreme. I mean, the Duchamp urinal is one of those things that come up over and over again. But the idea that how much does the hand of the artist have to be in the final piece to make it, a piece of art or something that you would call you've created it. And I just think that we've had that discussion for so long now that just because we have a new technology, we want to start the conversation all over again. It's like, well, we've already resolved this, didn't we?
You brought something up that the other day it popped into my head when I was thinking about Duchamp. I said, Midjourney basically is a ready-made machine.
Mm-hmm.
It creates Duchamp ready-mades just by a push of a little prompt,
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's still a great part about any of this is that at this time, I'm gonna reserve the future to see what happens, but at this time, the machine needs you to be a part of the process. It doesn't just wake up and start making this shit on its own. You need to interact with it. You have to be there to make it happen. And I think exactly what Greg did, which I didn't even think about, which was, I think, a great idea of adding in the word ficus, because not Don Fike, but ficus. But because a ficus tree has all that kind of root movement and twisty things that go on. And again, that becomes part of this process. I think about it like almost as photographers and painters and whatever form of art that you do, as you move into this AI world, you start to become a little bit of a poet. Now it all becomes words, your vocabulary you have to use. And I think, and now I'm interested to go back in and use this idea of the ficus thing and see, and I thought about, again, afterwards, many things, as you start thinking about, all different kinds of trees, and the word, I was thinking bonsai comes up, and that's the same sort of tree that has all this motion in it and stuff, and, what would come from that. And I love the little type of houses that it built for you. It's a weird, it feels like a kind of a little weird twist on the Kincaid cottages, right?
This is amazing. And how this
Larry, I think of this as like a Betty Crocker cake mix that you buy.
Right.
All the ingredients are there. You just add a little water, pop it in the oven, and then you put the decorations on it.
I wish it were that easy. What were you saying, Barbara?
That's okay.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
I wanted to get back to something Greg was saying, that the roots, he wanted to work on it a little bit more. And I can understand what you're saying, because the physics is not really there for it to be supported.
Oh, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be floating in space and moving in.
But it's still attached to it.
You've got it, because that's exactly what it's. You can
fabulous.
see it's almost like tearing away and floating like a balloon.
Fabulous.
What?
Wow. All right.
So I think your roots are fine.
The whole thing is fabulous.
Greg creates the standard. Yeah. Okay, so I cheated. So I showed this explanation last time about in Midjourney, you can drop an image into Midjourney and ask it to describe it for you. So and that's kind of what we were asking everybody to do was, but with your own mind, is look at the image and describe it to create a prompt. So I stuck with the Jerry Uelsmann image and let Midjourney create the prompts, but then I also went back in and started adding additional things to it. But for me, and these were sort of some of the things that came out that are very much like the Jerry Uelsmann image, and it's not being created by connection to the Jerry Uelsmann image, because it really was more about what AI looked at the Uelsmann image and came up with the prompts. Some of them were really way off. They weren't that close. But I think the most interesting thing, and I see this over and over again in the AI generated images, they always feel, I don't know, especially in the, well, I'm not even going to say especially in black and white, because the color also, many times they seem to lack the contrast or the punch that we would normally have in our own photographs. So I also then took them all like another step further and actually processed them. So I didn't do much more other than just typical kinds of processing that I would do to my own images. So sort of pushing the black and white values. So I had a few examples of them. And I think this was one where it generated the house, and then I asked it to do sort of a zoom out 1.5 times. So I wanted to see if the house got further away, the roots got longer and came forward. Same thing, I ended up processing the image just to get a little more. And again, remember I said I wanted the more stormy sky, and so I added that into my prompt on most of them too. Here's a third one of the house. I loved this one. I love these roots that come up to support this sort of, part of the porch. Again, like most photography too, is I hate all the telephone lines, right? So I took out the telephone lines, and in this case, I actually ended up doing a sky replacement, which is again back to another thing when we talk about Photoshop and the ability to do these kinds of things. Is go, the sky that was generated with the image is not that exciting, so I went ahead and just put in a new sky and then added the additional processing to it also. So as well, and I love this one too, where the tree actually comes up, becomes part of the house, and then the tree comes back out again. Yeah. Really bizarre. And then this one, this house looks fairly close to the Uelsmann house, which I was kind of interested, because part of the prompt was a 2-story house, and so you'll notice in most of these, not all of them, but most of them are 2-story houses. But so this was the straight version, and again I did a sky replacement on this one, but a whole lot more contrast. I just think for a black and white image, this to me just feels really weak as a black and white image. If somebody were to, bring this as their processed image, I feel like, there's so much more you can do. And especially when you look at this what you would kind of consider to be a maximum black area, really lacks in that contrast. And then once you really start pumping up the contrast, all the texture and the roots and everything start to come out. So and this, I think, was a beautiful image too. The idea that the roots start to engulf the house, you kind of get this feeling that they're actually taking over the house. The last few I ran out of time. I didn't run through and do more processing, but I did generate more images. And I love some of these where the house is actually starting to fall apart, sitting up on the hill. I like that view too. This would probably be an interesting one to process further. And I think this is the same as that one. Similar, yeah. And then this one is, I don't know, is it the same as that one? It is. So some of these are duplicate. Oh, no, it's not a duplicate. So probably because there's a few things that are different. So some of them are, inside of Midjourney, when you ask it to do variations on an image, some of them might be very similar. Like that one, I think, is, again, the same, close to that same one, too. So it's just a variation on the other ones. So, that was kind of my take on the Uelsmann. If I had to pick the one I liked the best, I don't know.
Yeah.
None of them actually felt like that, tree or the house coming out of the stump like Uelsmann used. But I think I like these equally as well. I kind of like the one that when I asked it to zoom out a little bit, because you get a little bit more distance. But I think of all the houses, I kind of like the look of this one in the lower left, the one that created the porch. the porch roots and things. I just think that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Did you say you tried to give the in the style of Jerry Uelsmann, but it didn't go Jerry Uelsmann?
No, you know what was weird was, I don't want to go through the whole thing. When I put the Jerry Uelsmann in, it seems like each of the prompts that it generated, it used, it was like in the style of somebody else. It didn't, it never said in the style of Jerry Uelsmann. Oh, here it is here. So in this prompt here, in the style of Misha, and Misha is Misha Gordin. Somebody's I think he's a Russian guy, and he does some amazing black and white compositing, a lot of repetition that he composites together. And I think he does a lot of his compositing actually by cutting, kind of like the Don Fike way of doing your other stuff, cutting and pasting and then rephotographing the piece to make the final image. But anyhow, it was interesting that it came up with, I think, 3 or 4 different names, but none of them were in the style of Jerry Uelsmann. It didn't notice that. But I don't think any one of these, I don't see the other name. But anyhow, it did recognize other artists as a resource. All right. And I think that's all of the house images that I have. Again, there's the Jerry Uelsmann one. It's interesting how much this house is pretty close to, let me copy this and paste it. So the Jerry Uelsmann house is very similar to, close to this one, I think. Kind of has the same number of windows, the central porch. Doesn't have that top. I don't think any of the other ones did too. It's funny how your mind thinks that, oh yeah, it's just like the Jerry Uelsmann house. So then you do it and you go, yeah, not really. All right. So let's jump back and we will look at Paul Lawrence's submissions, and I don't know that I I think I have everything in here that you sent, Paul.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Let's start with the one in the lower left-hand corner on your screen.
Wow.
That one.
Wow.
That one.
All right.
So this is at Liberty Station in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And I went wandering around looking for something to shoot, and I found an unrehabbed section of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm calling this image the White Rose. Jay DeFeo, it must have been in the 60s and 70s, did a painting called the White Rose, which I think started off as a regular 11 by 14 painting, but it wound up being about 8 feet by 12 feet.
Wow.
And about 3 feet thick.
Wow.
And they had to take a wall out of her apartment studio in San Francisco to move it over to the Art Institute.
Wow.
So I saw this and I thought, I wonder what this would look like if I were to put it together with the 4 sides and make a square out of it. And yeah, this is the next one. It didn't work. What happened was it wound up with a big hole in the middle of it.
Okay.
So I highlighted the hole and put some sort of prompt in. I don't know what. It could have been Jay DeFeo. It could have been crumbling stuff. But it came out with this pretty cool thing. And then on the top piece I moved, not on the top piece here, but on the top bar across, you can see that's really the same image, just moved and touched up a little bit.
Wow.
So
this whole center part was generated AI inside Photoshop.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I kept looking at it, and since you were canceling meetings right and left, I kept farting around with it.
Right and left. We only canceled one, and I regretted it because I did stay home and watch the debate. And
yeah, but was the one that you canceled on the right or the left?
Is what?
You don't know.
I see.
So I think I decided I would try and put some foreground in here.
All right.
Some steps and things like that. And that's where that first image that
Wow.
that you showed, that one, I guess it is. Yeah. Oh, no.
No.
Someplace in here, maybe it's the last image.
Look at that.
Someplace in here, there is a doorway, an arch and a doorway.
There? No?
Nah. Go all the way to the top.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I wasn't at the top. There we are.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, there. So I decided I would try to put the other image in this arch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so I did that, and I didn't mind the stepping of the step. At first, I thought, hey, that looks kind of cool. I did do some work at some point to get the tile on the ground, on the floor, to go back more evenly and to get the walls a little more even. But basically, this is a combination of the two images.
All right.
And then, since you weren't farting around, I still had extra time.
Wow.
And I looked at it and I thought, well, what if I put it down the end of the
Oh,
hallway?
so you use that hallway into this one. Wow. So this is like the zoom out feature inside of Mid-Journey. You can keep zooming out. So he started from the inside. Then we zoomed out one step, and then we like zoom out one more step. So it's actually pretty cool.
Wow.
And that's what I wound up with. So this kind of speaks to a lot of the things that we talked about earlier in the evening about, stumbling along and see what gets created, and also wandering around your neighborhood and seeing what's where people aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
People were not here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any comments for
Very
Paul?
cool.
Oops.
Well,
Go back to that
I'll
one.
comment.
Sure.
Well, I can tell you what I liked about it. I mean, especially the last image, with everything being further back, it's harder to tell about what I don't like. And what I don't like is that the pattern that you use is the same pattern that I can see. It's flipped, it's rotated. It's just really, to me, blatantly the same pattern. And I would think that you could go into Photoshop and take bits and pieces of it and move it around and kind of jumble it up enough where you couldn't tell that it was the same pattern.
That is such a great comment. I don't know if it was at the DPX meeting or at the meeting here last time where I showed an image of a helicopter. I think it was DPX.
Yeah.
And I chose the image because of the noise and the rain, and because we do the before and after, I showed the before. And the before had another image in it. Just another framing that gave another image. And a lot of people mentioned that they liked that image better. And I liked the tighter one because I was more interested personally in the rain and the dirt and the messiness of the image. In this, my goal at the beginning was to use this same image, although I did do exactly what you said up on the top where I duplicated and cleaned up and moved one of those. But my goal was to make it be the same all the way around. So it's a great comment because it speaks to critiques, and I can't argue with you. It's a great idea. I just don't like it.
Oh, I love it.
I actually kind of like just this, and I don't mind either that it's like, okay, maybe I can figure out that it's the same thing flip-flopped and all that. I'm actually a big fan of doing symmetrical kind of things like that, flopping and butting images together.
It's just so obvious to me. The little image on the left is rotated 90 degrees up, then it's flipped horizontally to get the next image, and then the image on the left is a flip, and it's a rotation, not a flip, of the image on the right. I mean, it's just like bang, bang. It's all the same image.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, I get the same. It bothers me when I walk into tile. You know, when you buy tiling for your home, and they've got like 5 different patterns, and they kind of rotate them and flip them around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's my mind, but I could see all those rotations, and it just looks like, oh, these are fake tiles. They don't really look like the real ground. Real stone or anything.
I was just going to open it. There. I was going to play around with a little bit of cropping, but I can just do it verbally. I think that on the image here, it would have been. I should have had this open already. All right.
While you're pulling this up, Larry, I'm thinking in terms of what Kaz is talking about. The way I think about things like this, and what Kaz was mentioning is when my eye is drawn into something where it's really obvious how something was done.
Yeah.
Or the technique or the tools, when that becomes more prominent than the interest of the image, that kind of pulls me away from the image itself and the story or atmosphere or whatever's going on. So that's where, like, that obvious repetition isn't necessarily bad, and sometimes that patterns and rhythms and repeating a design over and over is a benefit to the image. And here I think I see it a little bit as a distraction, but I see your point too, Paul. I admire what you did with the whole thing, or your whole thought process about it, and just trying some different things and experimenting with that. And I really like this center square. The
That's amazing.
Inside,
yeah.
This abstract in there is to me the most interesting part of it.
Agreed.
I agree too. And as you guys say what you're saying, I agree with you, as I said, but also the first thought that comes to mind is, oh, that worked. Because I want people to see that it's the same thing.
Right.
You got it.
Right.
It doesn't look real. And if what your point you're trying to make is that it doesn't look real, that you can see, how it was made, then you accomplish that.
Right.
Because it doesn't look real.
Good.
Good. Yeah.
I mean, if this looked real to somebody, they need to sit down.
Wow.
I think everything else looks real except for that area.
I don't know. I probably would do this. I don't know. Is just looking at the idea of almost everybody had mentioned that they love the center part, right? So this idea of trying to get a little more focus on the center by changing the lighting and all that.
But remember, if you're going to follow it to the end of the trail, there's a floor that's in there also.
There's a what in here?
Floor.
A floor.
There's a floor in there. The long shot.
Oh, in the long shot. Yeah. On the long shot. Here, yeah.
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 And actually, that's interesting too, because it adds some depth, to it that the full piece doesn't have.
And it looks more real to me, because it's harder to tell that the things are flipped around.
Yeah.
All right.
Agree.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Any other comments before we move on? Anybody else? All right. Speak now, or forever hold your peace. All right. So, Kaz. Nothing political to see here.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. Look at these things in the background.
Oh yeah.
Oh, love it.
The Cartoon Cartel.
Oh.
All right, so y'all have to understand Kaz's mathematical poetry here. So take it away, Kaz.
Well, the first thing I want to do is, I want to throw at you. Do you think that Midjourney did a decent, or let's say, an acceptable job on Donald Trump?
There would be no mistake who the character is to me. Yeah, so I would say that it.
I'd say it was
I think
quite
that
clear.
I think it was generous
the fish
with his.
surrounding him are about to do an acceptable job on him.
I'm sorry?
The fish surrounding him are about to do an acceptable job on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the color of the tie is a little off.
Yeah, it needs to be red.
It's not as red as it should be.
Yeah, it should
And
be just a
no
small
no
red,
pattern.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so basically what I was wanting to know is, if his face looked real, the shadows and everything looked good enough.
Yeah.
And,
No, it
and
looks good.
nobody said, no, it doesn't look quite real enough. Well, it would not give me a Donald Trump.
Well,
It says,
yeah.
Midjourney says, we're not doing Donald Trump or Biden.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Because you remember a long time ago, there were a whole bunch of things up on Facebook and Instagram where people were showing things of Trump getting arrested, but with the cops and all that, and so they must have put a filter in then. Since then,
I've done things with Trump numerous times before the shooting.
Yeah.
But since the shooting.
How did you create this then?
So I asked for an old man surfing on a sea of monsters. And it gave me an old man with the beard and long white hair, looked kind of like Return to the Future or Back to the Future, that kind of a character.
Yeah.
And so I just went in and, with Affinity Photoshop, and then I went onto the internet and found a picture of Donald Trump. And the picture of Donald Trump is just a regular white with a flash on his face. I mean, it was flat. There was no shadows or anything. So I had to go in there, and build all these shadows and the highlights in the hair and try to get the light.
You got him.
Right.
You got
right.
him. Yep.
Yeah.
So that was the challenge for me. The beard was down in the tie. I had to kind of reconstruct the tie. The collars, the collars doesn't look really good there, but I thought it was acceptable.
Sure.
So
The hair helps.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, I had to put a layer with white, and then I did a merge as the filter thing, on the layer. You can do normal and you can do highlight and all that crap.
I think what you did is amazing.
Got the highlights and stuff. So I really spent a lot of time trying to get that face to look acceptable.
So
and then the math equation, I'm looking at Trump and he's like, it's just amazing that this guy, nothing sticks to him. I mean, he's like surfing through a sea of monsters and nobody's touching him.
the new Teflon Don.
And the Georgia courts dropped,
Yep.
the best case against him, they dropped it.
Yep.
After he got shot. And oh my God, this guy is just amazing that he's able to navigate through this crap. Anyway,
He's got the lawyers to help. He's got the money for the lawyers. I listened to one of those court cases that were live, and oh my God, those lawyers are just they're those things in the sea.
Yeah. So the math equation, basically, you have to look at it as we're talking about the value of something. So the value of the depth of corruption is proportional to the crimes. That means the more crimes the more value in the crimes, the more value in the depth of corruption.
Wow.
Which that makes sense, right?
Wow.
And then it's inversely proportional to the accountability, which means that as the accountability goes to zero, which is no accountability, the depth of corruption goes to infinity.
Oh, yeah.
So in the matter of
Wow.
And so these sea creatures were created in Midjourney?
in Midjourney, and I did quite a few different things, and they sometimes they produce King Kong gorilla looking things in the ocean, and or one giant shark, and I went through a bunch of them. But this one here looked like here's some monsters.
So everybody won't recognize the name, but some of you will, because those of us that are familiar with the critique nights at Oma, these look like a Brady Wilmot character.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I told Greg Clamp this, in a phone conversation we had. Brady Wilmot is Midjourney.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
What about I'm blank on the name. Never mind.
It'll come to you. Yeah, when I see Brady.
Bosch. Hieronymus Bosch. What do you think of Hieronymus?
Oh, Bosch. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Same idea. Yeah.
But Bosch is great because he's got a theme. He's got, there's something behind it. There's some poetic, just the Garden of Earthly Delights.
Biblically apocalyptic.
Resonance with imagery. That's the thing I hate to cast shade on Brady because he's an incredible painter.
Yep.
Wow, he's amazing.
He's amazing.
But that's the part for me that if he ever got that, that poetic depth in his work, he would just go through the roof.
Yeah. All right.
I agree.
Larry, I just sent you 2 images. If you have the time and don't mind sharing them, there's 2 images related to this. When Kaz is done, if you don't have anything else, because there's one image that is those monsters. I got the exact faces in a couple of images that I rendered a year ago.
Wow. All right, let me see.
When I was trying to get a manatee.
So it's probably Midjourney is drawing on those same images from wherever they learned it from.
Yep.
Was this all the same? Did it create all these same monsters together in one render, or did you have to?
The only thing that I got.
That's amazing that they're all, uniform color and kind of similar.
Did anything down by the equation? There was a giant hand, like a human hand, and I didn't like it, so I took it out. But that's the only thing.
Did you tell it stormy or churning water, or did it?
Wow.
No, I just said a sea of monsters.
This guy.
I said, an old man surfing on a sea of monsters.
I love the water.
That's fabulous.
And a lot of the images did not even have a surfboard, so this one came out with.
Wow.
Yeah, this is incredible. Look at these guys.
I don't know.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Very similar monsters.
Those are almost exactly the same faces.
You remember the prompt?
I was trying to get a manatee, and I don't remember exactly. Well, let me see if I can find the.
I should have put these into. Let me move these.
I thought you were using a more.
Move these to Kaz.
That's great.
So there's the Trump one. Accountability is a bitch. But there's the characters side by side. Pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty similar. Same sharp teeth. So I wonder whose characters those were.
Yeah.
Modeled off of.
Not sure. Wow.
Does Trump ever wear a 3-piece suit?
I've never. No, most guys our size don't.
Yeah, good.
And this one I had to do in 2 separate images and then composite them
And
because
look
I
at this
couldn't
guy.
get the eagle
Same
in the
mouth.
picture with
Yeah.
Trump.
Yep.
So this is when they let you use Trump?
Yeah,
Trump?
yeah, and I think that was a pretty recent thing, probably just since nominations and election stuff. They've, just getting into election season,
That's
trying to
pretty incredible.
minimize the political.
I love the accountability as a bitch.
That's funny too with
That
the
is-
accountability equation too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Nothing political here. All right. So any last any last comments for Kaz on his mathematical
No, I think
poetry?
it's fantastic. I love the lighting. I love the water. I love the
I love it all. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the way it's just like a tunnel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
Churning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice space. Space. Very good.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we looked at Don's, looked at Greg's. So actually, yeah, it's almost. So I have one image in mind one that I'm working on. I actually shared it on our first Sunday group thing, but it's another piece that I'm working on for my series that I'm doing on. What do we call it? Losing my own language here. This piece is called "Where Is the Divine," and of course, it's in direct response to all the crap going on the other side of the world. The interesting thing is that this project that I've been working on for quite a while, I started off with again sort of a self-imposed limitation of using AI images combined together with my own photography, and then now I've had a couple of pieces that I've done where I didn't need my own photography, but it's still composed of several different pieces of AI. Everything wasn't generated in one AI image, and this is not finished. I've been working on. In fact, I'm adding some of the fire to the image. Some of the fire was part of the original AI image, and so I'm using. Again, this was another thing that came up in a discussion about rules in Photoshop. Is you can create fire. It's been there forever in Photoshop. You just create a path and you go to the filter and render and flames, and it will follow the path that you've created with the path tool. And then there's several variations you can create from it, multiple flames, one single flame to follow the path, and then afterwards you can actually take the transform tool and transform the fire and reshape it and all that. But the argument or the comment is that these are you can put these into your regular photograph, and I know somebody who actually did it a few years ago for an image at the fair. It was a night shot they had done, and it was somebody camping inside of this really cool alcove of a cliff. Might have been in Arizona somewhere, the Canyon de Chelly or something like that. Somebody's camping there. They got this green tent set up, so they put a light inside the tent, so the tent's sort of glowing this green color, and then they had a fire pit going with fire going in the pit, and then in the background they did a long exposure and long enough they shot, I don't know if it was the Milky Way, but you could at least see the stars in the sky. It was all done at night. So the length of the exposure, the fire pit was just this glowing orange thing because the exposure was too long to record the flames. And so he went into Photoshop and used the generate flames, and he put flames back into the fire pit, and the whole thing looked totally realistic. Nobody even questioned it. But I thought, it now with the way things are being worded, you would not be allowed to do that because this thing is now generating something that didn't come out of your camera. You didn't photograph the fire, and there it is inside your image. But anyhow, so I've used it a few times for different things. But I love the idea that you can again start generating things from within inside Photoshop, but again compositing things together. I still have a common element that I put on the back of these robed figures, a symbol, that AI generated for me that's supposed to mean hope. The other thing on this one that was really cool, there was a sign over here on this post here, and it was a yellow kind of a caution sign, but you couldn't read what it was. Midjourney didn't create anything that was readable or of value, but I love the idea, so I actually got, and I could have gone out and found this thing myself, but I ended up using a stock photo and dropping in this caution children at play idea, because I thought that was a great sort of commentary on everything that's also going on. I mean, the things that have happened.
Wow.
But I had a heck of a time generating the gesture of this guy, because I wanted something about that sort of more of a pleading gesture, or it can be interpreted a lot of ways, I'm sure. But the good news is,
So you
go ahead, Cass.
So you want this to be viewed as in America, or
No,
England?
nowhere really.
Because you're using English on the sign.
Well,
If you
true.
would have used Hebrew or Arabic, then
Yeah.
it would have changed it.
So that's a good point.
And you would have,
Yep.
But I also want it
It's
legible.
sugar.
I also want it legible, so that I know what it is. So yeah, that's a good point.
well, I think that you could put gibberish on there. I mean, it gets the point across. You see the kids.
Well, yeah,
on
that's
the,
true. If you use the graphic, that would work. Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe that's an idea.
I got to be honest. I have trouble with Midjourney's Fire. For me, if I want fire, I think I'm going to go out and steal, something and cut and paste it in Photoshop and bring it in.
Yeah. So very, very little of this is Midjourney Fire. Most of it is Photoshop Fire.
Photoshop Fire.
So the fire on this building here, everything but the sort of flame shapes. It's just sort of this, I don't know, almost looks like lava. Was created by Midjourney. Same thing on the tank. This fire here was all created in Midjourney. But and again, like I said, in fact just today started working on the flames. I don't like this one here at all. Looks like a pineapple flaming or something. So, but yeah, I still have a lot more work that I want to do to the image, but that's kind of where it's at right now.
I like the smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's all part of the original Midjourney.
Wow. That's amazing.
All right.
Do you have time to show the
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up.
my horse turned into a pencil?
Yeah.
My pencil horse?
This is actually pretty funny.
Larry, I sent you another one too.
Okay,
just
I'll
so
look.
we were on. But
Okay. So you have to explain what's happening here, Judy.
Oh my.
Okay, so yeah, so I was using that Russell Brown painting action, which works semi-okay at 40%. The one I have doesn't go less than 40%, so I was stuck with that. But I've been told that there's that maybe I have the wrong version of the action. But anyway, so a couple of the two on the top are 40% horse, or 40% pencil sketch, I'm sorry. And it still looks like a horse. And then the next one is 50%. And then after that, there was no horse. And
was a
it became
pencil.
completely a pencil sketch of a pencil.
So this tech.
But I love the picture.
Yeah, that's a great drawing of a pencil. This technique in
It's a great drawing.
Photoshop is it was originally your photograph of a horse, and then using this technique to select the image of the horse and ask it to turn it into a painting, a sketch, a watercolor, or whatever you want. The weird thing is that if you actually just type in, if you do a selection of your image and just type in oil painting, it will just make blobs of oil paint over the top of your image. You won't see your image at all.
Yeah.
And so somebody figured out that,
Well, that was what happened at 50, 60, 70, 80%.
right.
There was,
So
just on the watercolor ones, Yeah.
So, like, and just as an example, I'll use this image that we have up here. So, if you were to just select the entire image here, and then ask Generative Fill to make this oil painting, and go ahead and hit generate, you will just basically, and this is representative of saying at 100%. You're allowing the prompt to affect the image 100%. It even looks like a little face in here. That's kind of weird. And look at this. So here's the variations. There's that, and then the last one you actually get an oil painting of a woman. So at 100%, it has nothing to do with the original image at all. Only 100% from your prompt. Go ahead.
I've got an image that looks like that.
Yeah.
That face.
Yeah.
It must be pulling the same face.
So then I'll use, so Tony Kuiper has a panel that's so much easier to use if you want to do this sort of thing. And this panel is free. You can go to his site and download it. And so these are the percentages that Judy was talking about that she used on the Russell Brown one. So if I were to say, in fact, it usually turns out pretty good at 20%. So if I select the entire, and actually you don't even have to. So if I just select 20%, you'll see the way that he does it is the percentages are represented by stronger degrees of this magenta tone, right? So, and this is really just an action that kind of does everything in the background for you. So at 20%, if I put the prompt in here and I put in oil paint, and I said painting, so oil painting, and I say generate from here, what it's doing is it's actually making sort of either it's a temporary overlay, it's allowing the AI to use part of your image to also interact with the prompt. So in this case, you see basically kind of an oil painting that is much closer related to the original. I don't know that this doesn't look like it has a lot of heavy brush strokes in it, but you can start talking and telling it that, let's just say if we want to say oil painting with, and I haven't tried this before.
Palette knife.
With what? Palette knife. Let's do that.
Palette knife.
Yep. That sounds good. Say oil painting.
I haven't tried palette knife yet. I'll have to do that.
You have to know how to spell palette.
And palette knife is in the inspiration section also.
Okay, good.
If
Yeah.
you can't spell.
And also, it doesn't. Oh, I didn't pick a percentage, so again, we're gonna get 100% here. We'll see.
Oops.
We'll probably get a picture of a palette knife. Nope. It actually, so it did interact. Because it was interacting with the previous images. That's why. So he still didn't get a
Yeah, it
palette
doesn't
knife.
look like palettes.
No. So let me go
Palette
back here. Let me turn that one off and get back to the image, and let's try 40%. Maybe I'll get a much higher level of oil. And that's the thing anyhow of playing with the percentages. It'll get stronger and stronger and stronger until you really don't recognize the original image anymore. So there you go. That still does look like a palette knife, but it looks more painterly than the first one. So now as you increase the percentages, then the values change here. And you can use...
Yeah, I want to see the Trump one with palette knife.
you can use... You can use any style of painting. You can use watercolor. So what Paul had said, also on this panel, if you hit the inspiration button, it goes into a bunch of suggested, in this case, movements, themes, techniques, effects, materials, concepts, color and tone, lighting, and composition. And these are all basically, I think, drawn out of the options that are inside of Firefly. So what happens if we were to say, let's say oil painting with palette knife, we'll pick let's go with neo-expressionism. We could actually the fun one, we'll go comic book, technique, so I can get rid of the oil painting and maybe say make it acrylic paint. Let's get rid of, so all it's really doing is adding prompts up here. And then what it actually, the ones that you see there in orange are ones that I've highlighted. So if I right click on any one of them, so it just kind of helps you find your favorites. But any one of these that I checked then just becomes part of the prompt. So I don't know how well it would work if you started mixing things up, but let's go with color explosion and futuristic and dramatic light, and we'll go with that. So we'll say, okay, so all it does is really is place it in here. I'll go ahead and pick a percentage again. We'll go with 40% and say generate. Should have turned off this other one, but I didn't. Don't know that it feels futuristic. Let's see if that actually makes a difference if I go back to the original. What did I say? Did I say 40%?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Because I didn't have it turned off. This is more futuristic. Look at the interesting words that it picked. Is odd. Kind of maintained the panels around the outside edge.
Mm-hmm.
Even did the flop over here, right? It's the same pattern flip-flopped.
Mm-hmm.
That's just amazing that it recognizes that kind of stuff. And the center thing, really all it did was remember the kind of bullseye look.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, that's that panel. Comic book, that's why I forgot we used that as a prompt. So yeah. And you can go in and keep changing it and generating new stuff. All right, and who said, somebody said you said, Kaz, you said something else? You're muted. The answer is yes, I have it right here. This is like, it's funny. It's really not fair because we get to see everything first. So. All right. Let's go back. Kaz. I want to see if anybody else recognizes. So what is?
I had a lot better luck with the watercolor.
This is
Russell
so. What
Brown.
is your?
So this is the volume of his compassion. So this is the equation for.
Is
So it gives you the volume of a sphere. And so for the radius, I'm using his middle finger for the radius. I'm calling the radius of his compassion.
Oh,
And so-
man.
And so you see the sphere,
Uh-huh.
and the radius is his middle finger.
Uh-huh.
And then I did kind of a mafia thing off of The Godfather. The rose and everything. And what's weird is Donald Trump is using this exact same motif right now.
Uh-huh.
In his campaign, this Godfather thing. He's like he's embracing the whole idea. And somebody did exactly the same thing I did
Wow.
recently.
Yeah. Wow.
so this is what it reminds me of, the old Johnny Cash photo, right? Yeah. Got almost the same expression on his face.
Of course, the original photo didn't have his middle
Right.
finger.
Right.
It was his index.
Right.
I moved it.
Good on you.
All right. Well, once again.
Now, if I were ever to make any money, I'm sure the photographer would come after me.
Uh-huh.
Well, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. I'm game. Are you?
Wow.
All right. Did I leave anything out that anybody has sent that maybe I didn't include? No?
Well done, guys.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very, very inspiring.
Yep.
Really was.
a lot of fun. Yeah, it's so I'll be anxious to see again. So I don't know. I'll send out an email if we decide to pick another prompt. I might put Kaz in charge of it since Kaz had the least amount of fun with my idea of a prompt. Wait a minute, what was yours called?
Oh, tree crab?
Tree crab, yeah.
Tree crab.
Yeah. That was pretty expressive of what he thought of it. All right. Well, all right. Thanks everybody for sending in images and spending some time tonight, and most of all, thanks for the political. What? I was almost going to go with harmony, but I don't know if that's true or not. For the political satire tonight. Jeez, who knew? Who knew? All right. Have a good evening.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everybody.
Thanks,
All right.
Thank y'all.
Bye.
Good night, y'all.
Larry. Good night, everybody.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming to DPX AI tonight. And until we see each other next month, stay creative, be inspired, and be an inspiration to others.